Right, so let's compare the DPS trinkets on offer from Antorus for strength users. Now, there's 5 main ones we can realistically try to pinpoint. We're not going to look at all at Amonful's Vision. We all know we're going to want that one. But also, we don't really know the chance of getting it. It's not likely to be very high. So, running through the ones that we could actually get hold of, Khaz'goroth's Courage realistically is the one that we should be getting, regardless of what the sort of sims say, because of the Path of the Titans ability on it. But in terms of what it does, it gives us our primary stat. Damage and attacks have a chance to make your weapon glow hot, doing fire damage, blah, 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 blah. But, as I say, it's a Path of the Titans trinket. If you get hold of that, you're going to be wanting to use it. Now, Forge Fiend's Fabricator has mastery on it by default. That's the one where some cunning use of it can make it do more damage, or less cunning use, less damage. It might be more useful in some fights than others. Basically, it lays mines. After a short amount of time, those mines blow up. But you have the ability to trigger them early if you see an opportune moment. The ability to trigger them early has a 30-second cooldown on its own. But the fact that you have some strategy there means that you may not get quite the same amount of damage that the sims would suggest from that. Particularly seen as the sims don't actually account for you triggering it manually anyway. Because you would trigger it reactively. You would sort of identify a situation where you can get some extra damage from it and then use it to blow it up. Say a load of ads have just spawned on it, for example. Gorshalak's Legacy, this has haste as the main stat on it, and melee attacks have a chance to grant applications of a stack which goes up to 15 times, and then basically you go Cone of Death. So multiple things in the way of that will take a load of damage from it. Again, how much benefit you get from that depends on whether it's single target, whether there's some ads in there, and whether those ads happen to be there at the time at which these applications build up. This is not an on-use ability, not that much control over it. Seeping Scourge Win, that's versatility on it, but melee attacks have a chance to deal some extra shadow damage, but it does most of its damage single target. It doesn't do as much damage if there are other mobs around. So that's a little bit tricky. Now, the sims I'm going to look at, of course, I'll give you my health warning in a moment, but that is important for that. Shadow Singefang, the last of the 5 main ones we could realistically target, basically has no stats on it. It's just going to do its effect, but the effect is pretty decent. So when your melee abilities hit, you've got a chance to increase your primary stat. We're concerned with strength here, so we're going to talk about strength. And also, auto attacks have a chance to increase our critical strike rate for 12 seconds. Now, the health warning. The health warning is always the health warning. When it comes to looking at sims, bear in mind a few things that may not apply to you. First of all, I've done this using a set profile, which may not be the same set of gear that you are using even within a few weeks. The other thing to bear in mind is that these are single target sims for 5-minute duration. If fights are longer or shorter, the effects of these trinkets may vary a little. Certainly they may well vary if there are ads involved, as there are likely to be on a number of fights. It's always ideally preferable if you can sim these things for yourself to see how it would apply to you. The other thing I will just say is I've set the item level of all the Antorus trinkets at 945. Another thing to bear in mind, especially when we're talking about Khaz'goroth's Courage, not only does it have the Path of the Titans effect, which is sort of taken out of these sims, but also you have the ability to upgrade it every week. As long as you're killing Argosy Maker, you get an item which allows you to upgrade it by 5 item levels. Pretty soon, no matter how lucky you are with your Titan Forge, this thing is going to be much higher item level than other trinkets. And again, the effect of that is going to be to make you want it. But just bear in mind. Now, I'm also going to compare trinkets that we may have already from, say, Tomb of Sargeras. Those ones will be, by default, 930 item level. So again, you might well have a higher item level one or a lower item level one. You need to take that into account in terms of what is personally best for you. This is just an overall look at them for the people who need to present to their guild. Look, these are the 2 trinkets that I really want, regardless of item level, because some guilds require that. I have been asked to do this, basically. So looking at Unholy DKs, first of all, and looking at the trinkets that we can get from Antorus alone, like combinations of them, you can see there which ones are looking the tastiest. The code is also up there if you don't understand my code for those things, but things like SSF is Shadow Singe Fang, blah, blah, blah. But on an individual basis, want to look at more detail on these. Mostly we just pair trinkets up if there might be some special interaction between the two. Generally speaking, that's not the case as much for these ones. So for Unholy DKs, we can see that even a 9-10 Unstable Arcana Crystal, I have made that 9-10 because, again, I've made all these trinkets sort of baseline. So the Antorus ones, as I said, I've used 945 item level because that's heroic baseline. 930 for the Tomb of Sargeras ones because that's mythic baseline. And 910 from Unstable Arcana Crystal because if you get that from the vendor aboard the Vindicat, then that's the baseline one for that. So that's looking really good for Unholy DKs. If you've got a 910 or better one, you are set. You're probably going to be using that. Next, you can see the Gorshalak's Legacy is worth a bit, and then Khaz'goroth's Courage. Do remember Khaz'goroth's Courage is virtually the same as Gorshalak's Legacy if you look at the actual DPS increase on this. And remember that Khaz'goroth's Courage, if you get hold of that, you're able to upgrade that each week. So realistically, you're probably going to be wanting to use that. So it looks like Unstable Arcana Crystal and Khaz'goroth's Courage, unless you're lucky enough to get Amanthal's Vision, is probably going to be the two you really want. But again, you can look down the list there for yourself if you need to pull out your two BIS ones. If it comes to AoE, just remember, use your intelligence on that one. You know your class well enough to be able to determine if certain trinkets are going to look a bit better than others. Always remember Seeping Scourgewind, which you can see there in like 4th place, does most damage against single target. So when it comes to Frost DKs, again on the left you can see the pairings of the Antorus trinkets, but let's have a look at the individual trinkets. Engine of Eradication, even at 930 item level, is still looking very, very good. Useful to use that one. Gorshalak's Legacy next, then Seeping Scourgewind. Again, remember that's pure single target. Seeping Scourgewind doesn't actually look a great deal better than, say, Khaz'goroth's Courage, which you know you're going to want. Unstable Arcana Crystal, 910. Shadow Singe Fang. And all of those ones do no less damage when there's mobs about. You know, the Seeping Scourgewind is a really weird trinket in that it's actually going to do less damage if you've got mobs about. And there are a number of fights where you're going to have mobs about in there. So for this one, you'd probably be saying always Khaz'goroth's Courage if you can get hold of it, just because you can increase the item level every week and the Path of the Titans effect. But also Engine of Eradication, if you've got a 930 version of that, that's still looking pretty good for you as well. Fury Warriors. Now, the Warriors cause me the most problem. Arms Warriors in particular, actually, but both the Fury ones, the Warrior ones, sorry, caused me a lot of trouble on Sims. I had to monkey about with it a lot to get it to behave itself. A lot of actions missing that I had to paste from elsewhere. But roughly here we go. So Khaz'goroth's Courage is just top of the tree there. And for anyone, even if it wasn't, we'd be treating it as if it was anyway. So you're definitely going to be wanting that one. Seeping Scourgewind looks, again, really good. But again, remember that single target focus with it. So maybe Gorshalak's Legacy would be of more use on most of the fights. Realistically speaking, Unstable Arcana Crystal also bringing it up in 4th place there. Beyond that, all the other ones do look like they're significantly less DPS for you at those item levels. But if you've got Titan Forged of any of those trinkets, again, it may well be that you don't want to replace them too quickly with any of those particular ones. Moving quickly to Arms Warriors, the ones who actually created me more problems doing these Sims. But for this one, Umbral Moonglaive still looking really strong for Arms Warriors for whatever reason. Seeping Scourgewind looking good as well. Forge Fiend's Fabricator. This is all a really weird mix of trinkets, which might actually be quite good because perhaps the trinkets that Arms Warriors are particularly wanting. According to these Sims, remember there may be usual health warning when it comes to Sims like this. You could well be after trinkets that other people are not after so much, so that might mean less competition on the ones you really want. But remember, even though Khaz'goroth's Courage in terms of the base effect is some way down, and in a loot council situation, as a result, the Arms Warrior may not be given priority over, say, other strength using specs. Nonetheless, remember the deal with Khaz'goroth's Courage. You can increase the item level each week. The Path of the Titans effect, you sort of do want it. But Arcana Crystal, again, looking really strong there. But Umbral Moonglaze, blimey, take that. And of course, because there are ads plenty on this, I mean, that's just for single target. That's going to stand you in good stead as well. It's worth getting yourself Umbral Moonglaze staying in your trinket slot through, you know, Antorus. Until, of course, Blizzard inevitably retune some of the trinkets. Maybe they nerf some of the Tomb of Sargeras trinkets. Maybe they buff some of the Antorus trinkets. Who knows? Finally, onto Retribution Paladins, my spec of choice. For this one, again, we could look at the strict order here. Seeping Scourge Wing look really good against single target. Remember, it's not going to look as good when there's ads about, and there are ads about quite a lot. Infernal Cinders is still looking decent. You still want to lose that. Vial of Ceaseless Toxins has moved right down. That's not going to be anywhere near as useful to us. But Unstable Arcano Crystal is pretty good. Forge Fiend's Fabricator is also looking decent there. Mastery, remember the baseline of Mastery, we might have turned our nose up at it in the past. Mastery is looking really good when you can get that 2-set bonus at least from your tier 21. So go with that one if you can get hold of that one. But it's the usual thing. Khazgros Courage, just like with Arms Warriors, it's quite low down in the DPS priority in terms of how much damage it's likely to do for us. So we're probably not likely to be given it over some of the other strength using specs. But nonetheless, it's going to be a good one in the long run. So you certainly do want to get hold of it. It's just one of those things. In the long run, it's definitely going to be really good for you. Even in the short term, you have to bear in mind that Path of the Titans effect that you're going to get from it. That's always going to be really good. But in terms of being desperate to go for trinkets, especially if you're thinking about which bosses to coin, you don't really have to worry about coining bosses for trinket purposes, other than Argus, of course. Definitely be coining that, especially if it is actually possible to get Amonthor's Vision from that. We want. But you may well already have some pretty good trinkets. If you've got Infernal Cinders at, say, 930 or even better item level, that's still going to go pretty well for you, even if no one else in the raid has it. Unstable Arcano Crystal, I just got an Arcano Crystal at 910. That's still going to be looking pretty good. So actually, an Arcano Crystal Infernal Cinders is actually, you're good to go to begin with. So you don't really have to worry about trinkets in the early days. Let them come when they're high enough item level and when everyone else is finished with them. So there we are. That's a quick rundown of the comparison of trinkets and how useful they're going to be to you. Obviously, there are other trinkets, say, available from Mythic Plus Dungeons, which may also come into here if you've got high item level. Don't forget, do sim them yourself when you get the opportunity, because only for yourself can you really determine how effective it is. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you found it useful, do give it a thumbs up. Put a comment below as well. If you're the first time to my channel and you want to watch more of this stuff, subscribe for further content, and until next time, I'll see you later.